Hello everyone, I'm Mark Builds It, and this is the creator-driven community. Today we've got two topics. I'm going to talk about Ethereum, and then I'm going to go through a piece that came through about how NFTs are reacting in this down market. So in 2013, Vitalik Buterin, a computer scientist, wrote up a white paper for this thing that he called the Ethereum virtual machine. And the entire purpose of this concept was to create a decentralized world computer. And the way that this computer was going to work is that anyone would be able to write a smart contract and they'd be able to deploy it onto the EVM, the virtual machine. And then you could also create a decentralized app, or a dApp is what you'll hear it referred to as, that is a more user-friendly front end that allowed you to either deploy or interact with those contracts once they got onto the mainnet. So anytime you perform a transaction, you buy an NFT, you send Ether, you are using a dApp. So Ether is the official currency of the Ethereum virtual machine. And Ether is used to pay for transactions on the network. So this fee is called the gas fee. And every transaction requires a different amount of gas, and the cost of gas goes up or down depending upon how busy the network is. So if you have a transaction that is really simple, the computing power required to perform that transaction will be low and it will use less gas. But if you have something that's really complicated, so purchasing an NFT with the image or the audio file embedded directly onto the blockchain, that requires a tremendous amount of power. So the amount of gas required to do that transaction will be higher. So sometimes when the network is really busy, we get into what's called a gas war. And that's basically just a whole bunch of people competing for transactions on the network at the same time. So when you have a really popular NFT drop that comes out, a lot of times you'll get thousands of people trying to perform a transaction at the same time, and the gas prices will spike. And so what would normally be a relatively simple transaction will require a much higher gas bid in order to get somebody to pick it up and put it into their block. That's where the cost of gas can fluctuate. So the amount of gas and the cost of gas are kind of the same thing, but they're very highly dependent on the difficulty of the transaction and what else is going on the network. And so this is one of the things that a lot of people complain about, because gas costs on Ethereum have gotten pretty expensive. Ethereum is the most popular blockchain in the world right now for smart contracts. And so there are a lot of people trying to use that network space. So one of the things that we'll cover later that's trying to address this is the creation of layer 2 blockchains that perform their transactions on a separate layer and then combine them all into one transaction that gets rolled up into the mainnet blockchain. And this is a way to spread the cost of transactions out over lots of users and reduce the overall cost to do a transaction. Okay, so Ethereum is the smart contract chain that's been around the longest. So it has, and it's done a really good job of drawing in tons of developers. So it's probably one of the most active space as far as development in the blockchain world and for smart contracts. There's a huge network effect for Ethereum-based blockchains right now. There are a lot of alternative blockchains out there, so they are not actually directly connected to Ethereum, but they use what's called a fork of the code. So they just say, I'm going to take the code at this date and this time, and I'm going to make a copy of it, and I'm going to create my own blockchain, and then we're going to develop it moving forward. And even these alternative layer 1 chains benefit from all the development that's happening on Ethereum, because they're all based on the same base code. So if Ethereum comes up with a new standard, it's really easy to roll those standards into this alternative L1. And the same is true in the other direction. There are a lot of people who might perform some really unique, interesting experiments, come up with some new ideas in an environment that requires less gas to try things out. And then because it's an Ethereum EVM-based chain, they can adapt those those changes. They can make some changes and adapt the code to work directly on the main Ethereum chain. Even if you're not using the Ethereum mainnet or one of the layer 2 solutions for Ethereum, if you're over here using a chain like Avalanche, you are working in a similar ecosystem. And just to kind of touch on some of the things that we talked about before, right now Ethereum is proof of work, so environmentally it's a pretty big drain on resources, but they're working to move towards ETH 2.0, which is the proof of stake system, which greatly reduces the amount of computing power required to secure the block, but changes the security mechanism from one of cost of transaction to value staked into the network. And if you want to learn a little bit more, maybe click on some links and bounce around the internet. I've got a link in here that takes you to Odyssey DAO's Ethereum page. And there's also a little bit of information on some of the more popular dApps that are used on Ethereum, as well as a brief discussion on layer 1 networks versus layer 2s and side chains. There's also a link here for the Ethereum white paper and the ethereum.org introduction to ETH and gas. Okay, so why does all of this matter? Why is it important? Well, Ethereum is the biggest blockchain out there, and there is a ton of development going on right now to make it easier to work on the layer 2 solutions and the sidechain solutions of Ethereum to cut your gas costs and make it easier for users to interact with the chains. If you're going to try to take advantage of network effects, and especially if you're going to be working in NFT space, working with a layer 2 or a sidechain that's linked directly to the Ethereum mainnet is probably the place that you want to be. Another interesting thing is this report that was put out by Josh Stark and Evan Van Ness. They work for the Ethereum Foundation. So they've done this awesome report on Ethereum. Now they work for the Ethereum Foundation, so it's skewed to promote Ethereum, but there is a really remarkable statistic in this report about creators and how they were able to earn an estimated $3.5 billion using the Ethereum blockchain. So I'll have a link to the file that describes how they defined a creator and what they included and what they excluded. There's an interesting chart here. It shows that creators earned $3.5 billion with Ethereum. Spotify and YouTube, so YouTube was about $4 billion and Spotify was about $5 billion. So if you think about YouTube's take rate is half. They give half of the value that they generate to the creators. They're generating this value on ads, and they're giving half of it to the creators. But they're only giving it to the half that have, 1,000 followers and 2,000 view hours. You have to do quite a bit of work and build an audience in order to be able to start capturing value from YouTube. Most of the things that are happening in Ethereum, the take rate by the platforms that are allowing creators to generate revenue are 20% or less. So, there is a whole lot lower level of input coming in from customers to generate that $3.5 billion of output. OpenSea, which is a huge NFT platform, they will allow you to mint for a 2.5% commission. You've also got higher end places that are more curated, like Super Rare and Foundation, and they might be up in the 15-20% commission structure. So let's just say 10%. Let's say that you've got a 10% fee, and so you've got creators who have made $3.5 billion on Ethereum, and they're paying 10% of that to platforms and dApps to help them distribute their content. Most of these people are not doing a whole lot of marketing in the sense that they're paying for somebody to promote their thing. They're using viral marketing. They're using hype just to build up their projects. So they've been able to bring in $3.5 billion in revenue for a cost of about $3.5 million. YouTube, on the other hand, creators on YouTube have been able to earn $4 billion, but they've had to pay $4 billion to earn that. So, I mean, they're basically paying out the same amount of money that they're able to generate, and just for the privilege of having a platform to distribute their content. Does this make any sense? The important thing to remember with any of this stuff is that there are going to be some creators who are better at marketing, who are better at building audiences, and who make a whole lot more money than the long tail of other creators who are, just making a couple $1,000s a year at most. And, it's part of that is the appeal of their work. And the other part is, just how well they can market themselves to potential customers. So all of those basic skills that are required to build a community or a content audience are still going to apply in Web3. It's just a matter of how much more you can keep for yourself or for your community. And I think that a lot of these platforms are going to be working very hard in the next year or two to essentially abstract away the crypto layer of things. They're going to make it easier for people to buy NFTs with credit cards, interact with NFTs without having to use complicated wallet software. It's just whoever figures out how to get people to use crypto without them realizing they're using crypto, those are the people that you want to watch out for, and those are the projects that I'm looking for. Okay, that just about covers sort of an introduction to Ethereum and what's possible. So the next thing I want to talk about is an article that was written by Reda Ferran from Finimize. It basically covers some theories as to why NFTs are behaving differently than the rest of the crypto sector. Right now, crypto prices are down. They've fallen something like 50% since their all-time highs in November of 2021. But the top 100 collections of NFTs have only lost 15%. And these blue chip collections, which those are, the Bored Ape Yacht Club, CryptoPunks, CryptoKitties, those have actually gained in value during this time. So there's 5 basic theories that they put forth in this paper. And the first one talks about how that when Ether goes down, the blue chip projects and other NFTs tend to revalue themselves to the dollar. So I think maybe this has to do with the fact that NFTs are more closely tied to dollar value than they are to Ether value. So if Ether cuts in half, then people who are selling their NFTs on OpenSea are going to double their prices so that they're able to rake in the same number of dollars or other fiat currency. So I think that this just simply states that NFTs are more closely coupled to dollars than they are to Ether. The other advantage there is that when Ether goes back up, people tend not to lower their prices to relink it back to stay linked to the dollar versus Ether. They sort of take whichever denomination is doing better at the time, and that's how they price their NFTs. The next theory is that NFTs are still in the fastest phase of their adoption curve. So this just means that people are still learning about them and picking them up, and with new customers flooding into the market, the prices are going to be more sustainable. NFT adoption is expected to increase even more as resistance from non-crypto savvy users decreases. And they're talking about all of the crypto exchanges that people, sort of the gateway into the world of cryptocurrencies, they're all starting to offer NFT sales platforms. So that's just making it that much easier for a new user to get into NFTs. All the NFTs that I've bought so far, I've had to buy Ether, move Ether to a wallet, then buy an NFT with Ether. It's been a multi-step transaction. It's been a lot more complicated than it needs to be. And all of these, easy entry points are starting to come online. Theory 3, NFTs enjoy scarcity value. So they just sort of did a math experiment involving Meta's goal of bringing 1 billion people into the metaverse. So they said, if 20% of those people said, hey, I want an avatar for, to use while I'm in the metaverse, that leaves you with 200 million people who will want an NFT to represent themselves in the metaverse. Most NFT collections max out around 10,000 unique pieces of art. And so if you had 100 of those collections, you would still only have 1 million unique NFTs for those people to buy, which is 0.5%. So, NFTs are going to be very popular purchase items for a really long time. So what does this mean for you? I'm not saying you need to run out and do a profile pic NFT project unless you're an artist. Because those people are doing well, but the ones who are more concerned with building a community around their art do even better. And those are the ones those are the people whose art is held on to for a longer period of time and traded more heavily. And because you can build a royalty structure into the NFT smart contract that allows you to collect a fee every time someone resells your work, that's something that's really desirable. So you want to create something that people want to trade and both keep and trade. You want to create a piece of art that people will buy multiples of at the beginning, and then will slowly sell off as you create utility, which builds the value of the project. And then they talk about here, Twitter has this, verification mechanism for NFTs where you have to prove that you own an NFT in order to use it as your avatar on Twitter, and they expect Instagram and Facebook to follow suit. So, this is just going to drive demand for those. Theory 4 is that NFTs attract a different kind of investor. So people who trade in crypto are basically like stock traders. If they want to buy low, they want to sell high. They don't have a strong emotional connection to the assets that they're buying and selling. NFTs are different because people may identify with the art. I know when I buy an NFT, it is either purely for utility or partly because of art and partly because of utility. So if I were to get an NFT that I really liked, I would be much less likely to sell it when the market turns down. Or if I buy an NFT that provides a lot of use to me, I'm not going to sell it just because Ether drops. So, the whole investment horizon for an NFT collector may be much, much longer than something as simple as Ethereum. And then the last one is that NFTs are simply in a bubble, and there is no logic to this. And I think in large part this is also true. Hey, did you know that I'm on Twitter? I'm Mark Builds It on Twitter. Occasionally I'll post about these podcasts and videos as they come out, but I also retweet things that I find that are interesting, and just a few comments here and there. So it'll help me know that you're watching these and you're finding them useful if you were to follow me on Twitter at Mark Builds It.